Let's kick it off. I'm Steve, and I'm joined by Ash and Uz, and Ruben Amorim has been sacked as head coach, not manager, of Manchester United.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah.
I thought we were on here for the Trump Venezuela thing.
What have you been doing all day?
Steve, you didn't tell me about this.
Breaking news.
Ruben didn't call you. He's been ignoring my calls all day, and now I know why.
Exactly. Episode 1 of this podcast was called The Ruben Plan. So episode 54, The Ruben Plan is officially over. Uz, I know you love your data, so we'll just give you a couple of stats on Ruben's record at Manchester United. So 1.24 points per game in the Premier League, the same as Alan Pardew, Chris Coleman. So in terms of fewest points for the PL teams that have been ever present since Ruben came in, we're fourth bottom, only above Wolves, West Ham, Tottenham. We have 15 wins, and even Wolves have 11 wins and they're bottom. So only, a little bit better than Wolves there. As a Manchester United manager in the Premier League, only manager worse than him is Ralph Rangnick, and he was in as an interim. Amorim has the worst win ratio, sixth worst win ratio of any Manchester United manager of all time in the first division. So Uz, immediate reaction.
Surprise. Bit worried about what's going to happen now, right? Because the thing that we've always sort of been fairly consistent on across all of us was that probably Amorim will be gone by the summer. I think the difference with you and me were more like, okay, let's try and ride it out because we don't see any good options. So I'm a little bit worried about who's coming in, what's going on. Do you remember like when Ollie went and then we bring Rangnick in, it just got even worse. So I know you've reeled off those stats and they're, unrefutable. We're also currently, sixth, equal with Chelsea, 3 points behind your title prediction, Liverpool. So, this season there has been some improvement. I think the big thing though was that pre-Leeds press conference. It was almost like had a lot of thoughts, previously, right, in the last 14 months about he's trying to get himself fired, and that was the one where I think he took it beyond any time that he's ever been. Two things I've always said to you guys, right, in terms of when does he have to go, is that he either loses the team or he loses upstairs. It sounds like the team, I've always said, look, the team still looks like they're fighting, but it looks like him and upstairs have had a clash and that's it. And it happens with all, like we've seen it with Maresca, seen it with many other managers. If you lose I don't know who's. Sounds like Wilcox, but
it is Wilcox. Just to let you know, like there was some information that came out from the Telegraph. I think Sam Wallace. Apparently, there was a meeting on Friday where Wilcox and Ruben came to blows, basically over sounds like the formation tweak. So yes, I'm pretty sure I saw it reported that the decision was made on Friday, but I don't quite believe that. But I have seen that the decision was made on Friday. So yeah, just to give you that information, Uz.
Yeah, so before the actual game itself, right?
Yeah, so that apparently it was Friday. So,
and it seems the clash is over coming into the January window, which we're in now. Who's in charge of transfers?
It's two things, but yeah,
What? Tell me more.
So, yeah, from what James Ducker has said and Sam Wallace in that article, it was supposed to be like a normal meeting between the two of them because they're in regular contact on a weekly basis, just obviously about the team. And Wilcox essentially questioned, why did we go back to a back three against Wolves? And obviously the performance was appalling. I don't obviously know if that's what was said to Ruben, but it was more, we had 2 games back 4. Things seem to get better. How come we're going back and reverting back to what Ruben prefers? And Ruben just blew his top off. And that seems fairly consistent because he's been like that in press conferences. He's come up with outrageous statements throughout his 14 months. So there's nothing to disbelieve, that was the case, and why he was so animated when he gave answers in the press conference, because the meeting was before the press conference. So he came in a bad mood. I heard Critch from The Athletic saying that even when he walked into the press conference, something was off.
So, and just to clarify, are you talking pre-match Leeds conference here or post-match?
Pre-match.
You're talking pre-match, because I've not seen much of the pre-match. I've seen the post-match. So was it quite hostile in the pre-match press conference?
Yeah, so he was very short with answers. So he was asked about the January transfer window, which as is alluded to, and he just simply said, there are no plans and I've heard nothing. So there's obviously been conversations apparently over the last few weeks about the fact that Ruben's asked for players. And to be fair, I did say on the last pod, he needs players, whether it's loans. And it seems like there's been a loggerhead about the Semenyo deal. I have to say, if Ruben is pissed off about the Semenyo deal, newsflash, he would never have come to us.
Can I just jump in and add a couple of points there, because it's transfer related? So I've seen reported today, and I think over the weekend as well, I've seen two things. One is he wanted Martinez as goalkeeper in the summer. He can't be too disappointed with the way Lamons has worked out, but that's one thing. Second thing is something I raised a few weeks ago. He did want Ollie Watkins over Shesko.
Yep.
So he feels like he's not been backed in terms of his type of target, I guess, is the general consensus.
The timelines are important in all this, because it's like the Martinez-Watkins thing is obviously something from the summer, as in towards the end of the summer, it's clear he wanted them to. To be fair, I think a few of us wanted them to, as opposed to data signings or whatever. So obviously INEOS have gone above him on that one. And then, yeah, Friday morning, he's had the meeting with Wilcox, essentially about the system and a bit to do with transfers. But transfers has been apparently building up for the last 2 to 3 weeks. He's gone into the press conference before the Leeds game, done the sound bites that everyone's been talking about, and then obviously after the Leeds game, actually, it was a pretty normal press conference. I watched it after the game, placid 4 or 5 minutes. Got to shout out James Ducker, because he said one last question, and that's when he went into the 2-minute rant. And interestingly, it wasn't the biggest rant I've seen. Maresca's was far worse, but it's the content of what he said, and that's the problem. He's been doing this the whole time. So very little sympathy in terms of that. But yeah, Steve, tell us what you thought then.
Yeah, well, obviously I was at Ellen Road yesterday. So, we should briefly talk about the game, because I thought we played quite well, given its, arrival away. Leeds, obviously Ellen Road is always a hostile ground for United to go. I thought we played pretty well. We had the disallowed goal from Cunha. Obviously Leeds scored, and then we reacted immediately. Really good goal, good pass from Xerxes. Cunha equalised, and then we had through the game we had a couple of chances. Shesko could have scored 2, hit the post towards the end. So you're coming out of that. You know what? You know how my mood is generally with United at the moment. I feel a little bit disconnected with the club. So I was coming out of that thinking, I would love to have won, but it's not the worst performance, it's not the worst result. So you could have easily just swept that aside and moved on. So this is why the timing is really interesting.
Decent fight in terms of the team as well, right?
Yeah,
They seem to
I
be
thought
trying...
Aiden Heaven really good, in terms of just the battling.
Yeah, that one mistake on the goal.
Yeah, the goals
where he
probably
just didn't judge it well. But just generally in terms of the winning those second balls, right, in a away fixture against Leeds. So competing, being combative, the passion was there. The quality, again, right? We're lacking all and Mbumo's not there, Bruno's not there. So the some of those moments in the final third, lack of quality, right, to put the goals away. But I love the great goal, as you said.
Yesterday
so you're right.
was pretty acceptable. Me and Az are lucky to have seen the best United teams go to Ellen Road, lose, draw. It's a tough place. So in that context, with the injuries, the absentees, because there was a lot made about the team in terms of 8 defensive players, I think it was. I didn't count. But given the circumstances, it's almost like you can get by in terms of understanding it just, right? It's not United, but it doesn't matter, right?
And he didn't. If you look at the
is.
bench, he brings on Xerxes, and there was no one else.
Yeah,
it's not and he had any options is the problem.
Exactly. And look, we've pillared him for when he makes subs and it doesn't go right. That was a decent sub. He came on, made a good impact, and that was actually quite bright afterwards as well.
So yeah, it was just weird, right? Just decent performance, and then
so this is why I said I think it's about January, because the pre-match press conference, the quote was about he's a manager and not a coach.
No,
What's
this
the
is
difference?
post-match.
No, it's post.
Oh, was that post-match?
That's
Okay,
post-match.
post-match.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a manager and a coach? To me, is to do with things like the scouting department and recruitment, and right. That's what differentiates it. So it must be to do with
But do you
transfer.
know what's absolutely wild is the fact that he was brought in as a head coach.
No, but
Officially.
so obviously I've seen the quotes and everything from Ruben. I mentioned this quite early, right? I don't know, a few months in, when he was like, going crazy in press conferences or giving crazy quotes anyway. He was clearly appointed as a head coach. It was announced, and look, INEOS are idiots for a lot of reasons, but they're not absolute tools, right? So he would have been clearly told he is a head coach. However, I'm sure there were probably assurances by the Weasel, Omar Barada, about transfer flexibility, right? In terms of how much influence does Ruben get?
I can bet you the word collaboration was mentioned in that meeting.
All of it, right? It's all gentleman agreement stuff, right? The Daniel Levy side, right? In terms of like, you say these things, but just like life, things change. And
but also,
that has
I
clearly
think
happened.
it's a bit like, like the Brendan Rodgers transfer committee thing. You do have a transfer committee, but who has the influence will change based on we're all here sitting here on pod after pod going, oh, in the summer this is who we're going to bring in. Why would you spend money on this guy? Right?
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
he's going to
exactly.
feel that. He's going to be like, well, wait a minute, I'm not 100% being backed here.
There's an interesting quote that I didn't see like on like YouTube or whatever, but I think this was before Christmas. But the quote, and you can find it, was along the lines of like, I'm realizing that we can't do it for free because we can't get the players, and I don't have the time, and we don't have the money as well. So I'm going to have to be flexible, right? I haven't actually seen it come from his mouth, but it's been well quoted, right?
That's
so
a recent quote. That's a recent quote.
That's before Christmas, like literally a few days before Christmas. So that feels like that was the beginning of almost, of the end in the end, right? In that, as is right, that transfers has been dominated by this. I don't think you can ignore the system discussion that Wilcox has brought up, because as part of kind of like the reason, and they're saying, behind the scenes or reported, is that Ruben was uncontrollable, like when he exploded on Friday. Like it's similar quote to what the Chelsea board have briefed to the press about Maresca, like just too emotional and not enough control. And that is apparently what happened with Ruben on the Friday. And it all makes sense, right, in terms of what he said, pre and post Leeds. And ultimately, yeah, like you guys, I thought this was coming. I didn't expect it to be 10 o'clock on a Monday morning. First week of Jan.
First week of Jan, yeah.
New Year's resolution ticked. New manager.
True. You got that quick. I just want to pick up on a point you discussed there about the formation change. I think Uz is right in terms of there's definitely a recruitment angle to this. I think that's quite clear. So that's definitely a big factor. But I do agree with you that the formation change, there's definitely some tension created there. And Ash, this is something we discussed on the pod well over a month ago. We don't like being Captain Hindsight. It's like Gary Neville on this pod. But we discussed the fact that why is Jason Wilcox trying to influence the formation that Ruben plays when you've clearly hired a manager that plays three at the back? It's quite clear to everyone when he came in, that's his philosophy. As a fan base, as a club, we criticised Ten Hag for lacking a system. So we were looking for a manager with a clear identity. We brought him in. And obviously, last season didn't go to plan. They backed him in the summer with some big signings. And then, we kind of saw it coming. They started laying the groundwork for the formation change. But we know how stubborn Ruben is. Those conversations with Jason Wilcox surely wouldn't have gone down well with Ruben as.
Yeah, it just seems like a weird. I wasn't in the room. I don't know how much this formation.
But you can
thing...
assume, right? You know enough about Ruben's character now.
No, I know about his character, but how much of this was this formation thing? It just seems a bit of a. It feels weird for a director of football to be insisting on a particular team formation.
But this
right?
is the problem.
That is up to the coach, isn't it?
I would agree with that in terms of like when you look at the two roles, and that's what you should have. But this is I guess the concern when me and Steve watched the podcast with Jason Wilcox, he referenced a few times, like, he misses the training ground. Like, it was almost like you could just tell. It's like if he was in charge, he'd have a back four.
He actually said, I'm pretty sure he actually said, sometimes I have to stop myself from trying to be the coach. Like, he pretty
And
much
this
said
is
that.
where context is really important, right? Because a typical, particularly continental sporting director, they don't care about these elements because they leave it to the head coach, right? In terms of Wilcox's background, he actually was a youth coach, right? So he was a coach first after retiring from football. Then he's obviously become head of academy, which is different to, first team football. And then he only had, I think, 6 months as, I believe it was sporting director at Southampton before joining United as, first of all, technical director. And just very quickly for the fans who don't know about the structure of INEOS at United, Jason Wilcox came in as a technical director, which essentially is around looking at the youth side, the pathway into the first team. That's not about the sporting director role, which I believe at the time was Dan Ashworth, and then he got fired. And, just very quickly, sporting director is essentially the link with the manager in terms of recruitment. They do look at the youth side, but it's more about recruitment and identifying the roles. So just a bit of context for everyone there. But yeah, essentially what I'm saying is I don't think Wilcox is the right fit for being a sporting director. It's the same as how John Murtagh got the role with Ed Woodward. I don't know what you think, Steve.
Yeah, I fully agree with Wilcox not being up to the role. I pointed this out weeks ago.
Months ago.
Yeah, months ago. I've got nothing against the guy. I think, he's clearly a smart guy in football. I just don't think that was the right role for him. We know, based off of a lot of reports, that when Amorim was appointed, we know that Omar Barada pushed for that appointment. We know that Dan Ashworth wasn't supportive of that appointment, hence why he left, a few months later. We also know that Jason Wilcox wasn't fully supportive of a three-at-the-back manager, so we know that. And then obviously at the time he was a technical director, and then he then gets promoted to director of football. So there's going to be some type of tension there from the get-go because of those circumstances. So yeah, it's not a massive surprise in terms of this happening. I think it's just the timing that's probably caught us all out, really. But yeah, I just that outburst from Ruben, I think he was almost asking for it, but when you call them out like that, I think it's only going to end one way, to be honest.
Interestingly, the statement says about performances and results, and apparently this is the best move in order to be able to get the highest position. I do feel like that's a bit of a smokescreen. The only thing I would say is that I did mention it on the last pod, those 5 games at Old Trafford, I think we picked up like 4 or 5 points. And I feel almost like if Ruben had got those points, I don't think we'd be in this position in terms of like talking about the results as being a factor.
Any more to say on the structure or generally with Ruben?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think where I do think the timing has to do with this window, because I think it must be related to transfers. And I think where the formation comes into it is, I think Wilcox didn't want to recruit to the system, basically, because he might not see the long term. So when Ruben says, I need a Semenyo as a wing back, he's thinking, well, if we move to another system, do I need Semenyo, etc., right? Or is he worth the huge expense that it would require to get him when I'm not sure about you as a manager and to recruit to your system? So I think it's all going to be interlinked. Yeah, Ruben's emotions, he's clearly an emotional guy. So if there was any, let's say they hadn't had a strong relationship from the start, right? That's always like something that's waiting to boil over, and it clearly boiled over. And in terms of results, let's see, because like I said, everyone was happy apart from myself. I was not happy when Ollie left, but I understood it. Things didn't look good on the pitch. Things can get worse. So I don't know. Are there any talk in terms of odds? You're the betting man, Steve. Don't want should be revealing that, but you like a little 50p here and there.
Yeah,
bit of
or
Rudy's Pizza.
Yeah.
Rudy's Pizza, which you owe me now.
Shout out to Rudy's Pizza if they want to sponsor the pod.
Any talks in terms of the next match? I heard it's going to be an interim.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, first of all, let's, confirm to the listeners, I'm sure they already know that Darren Fletcher will be taking charge of the team against Burnley on Wednesday. So obviously, good luck to Darren Fletcher. Like, he's a Manchester United man. We want him to do well, but interim in terms of very short term, or caretaker, if you will, is obviously Darren Fletcher. So I'm pretty sure I saw BBC Sport confirm and other sources confirm that they're looking at an interim for the rest of the season, and then they'll hire a permanent manager in the summer, which is obviously what we've talked about. So in terms of interims, I've not heard anything, concrete. The one story I did see, again, I think it was a Telegraph, is that Glasner is number one perm choice. I'm just looking at the odds now, and he is the favourite at 4-1. So that looks like the number one perm choice.
Slightly changed, right? Maresca was top of some odds list this morning.
Okay,
yeah,
well,
I think that was people just putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5.
I mean, Fletcher's the second favourite at 8-1. Obviously, that's based on the fact that he's going to have some
permanent
games. Yeah, but I don't know if that's because the betting markets consider like 10 games as permanent. So if Fletcher goes to the end of the season, technically, he could be. Yeah, so you almost ignore Fletcher. And then number 3 on the list is Maresca, 17-2. Oh, number 4, Gareth Southgate, 10-1. I've not looked at this list until now, to be honest. And number 5 on the list is Xavi, 14-1.
That's a good show.
And then beyond that, it's like all 25-1 names is Emery, Iriola, Eddie Howe, Carrick, Solskjaer, Poch at 28-1.
I was just looking at the Manchester United midfield from the 2008 semi-final against Arsenal.
Fletcher.
It was Fletcher and Carrick with Anderson. So we could have Anderson in there as well as a
Exactly.
mascot.
He could do the dancing.
What do you reckon, Steve? A bit of Fletcher and Carrick?
I mean,
till the end?
I'd get your man Ollie. He's in Manchester. He's had a managerial job post.
Is he in Manchester? Is that what?
Yeah, he lives in Manchester. Yeah, I think his daughter plays for United's women's team actually. Yeah, Ollie and Carrick, I believe, both live in Manchester. Are both out of work, so I would get them both back in to help Fletcher, and probably have the 3 of them till the rest of the season. That's what I would do. What about you guys, Ash?
I was
Marco
trying to think
Silva,
about
surely.
it.
Pay the buyout.
I'm just trying to think about it. Yeah, it's so difficult. Like, this isn't like in previous cases where it's like I've got a clear like number 1, number 2, number 3.
But do you agree with the approach of going for an interim and hiring the perm manager in the summer, like fundamentally?
I'm not sure. So at the moment, like I thought
you were going to pay for Eddie Howe. I thought that's the move. Because you were always, the thing with you were always firing Amorim anyway, and you had the plan. You're like, go for Howe. Can't get Howe, go for Iriola still.
Yeah, but football's circumstantial, right? So it depends on like, what do you want to do? When do you want to do it? Like, because like, for example, like if I was to hand pick any dream manager, I think I'd actually go Luis Enrique. But then immediately it's almost like, well, okay, let's go back to reality.
No, but your plan 2
Probably
weeks ago.
not gonna
I'm just
happen.
saying your plan 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, but the plan 2 weeks ago was the fact that, and also it wasn't me saying get Marco Silva in. It was more you were saying, okay,
No. Eddie
you can
Howe,
have Ruben or Marco
You said you'd
Silva.
go for Eddie Howe, right?
Yeah, I mean, he'd still be
So
very
would
high
you
up
make
on
that
the
approach
list.
now?
He costs 8 million.
Yeah, but wouldn't you do it? Like, here's the 8 million, Eddie. Let's go.
Yeah, if I could get buy-in and stuff like that. The thing is, and this is the thing, right? We are close to the summer. So it depends, for example, with my back channel discussions with Carlo, Tuchel, who else am I missing? I'll speak to Pochettino. He wouldn't be high up on my list.
Gareth.
Speak to him about what Argentinian restaurants
Barbecues.
in London.
I know the best Argentinian restaurant in London, so but yeah.
Tell the viewers, where should we go for Argentinian
Buenares in Hackney.
Excellent.
Ash, if you forget about whether you can get them or not, what is your top 3 candidates on the perm? Irrespective of whether you can get them, maybe take out Luis Enrique, because that's really hard.
You've always said Eddie Howe would come, right, Ash? You've always said that he would come.
I'm happy. What do you mean? Like
You've always said if you approach Eddie Howe, he would take the job. He would come to United. You'd pay the buyout. Newcastle, and to be fair, it's not like Newcastle are in the perfect situation. It's not like he had a great summer with the Isaac, and right? So
Eddie Howe would be high up on my list for sure. I'm just saying, because like this thing that you guys have been discussing about the fact that the names are in the summer, they're top of the top.
So you're trying to decide whether you take Carlo over Howe, for example, is what you're trying to decide.
So I'll give you kind of like a quick overview, right? First of all, you got to make a decision. Are you going to go with stability? Right, because like in the past, basically in the last 2 years, that's kind of where I've more angled towards, or as his approach that he likes normally, but we need a top name to do it, high ceiling, right? So high ceiling is obviously Carlo, Thomas Tuchel, I think them two in particular, right? So now I've got to decide, can I gamble and wait and do the Michael Carrick, Ollie, Darren Fletcher dream team? Because, for example, if we get thumped on Wednesday, that bubble will burst. not just for me, but for other people, right?
No, but that would be. I don't think Fletcher can be the guy in charge. That would be unbelievable.
What? But you don't think he can do it till the end of the season?
No, he's got no managerial experience managing the under-21s. The thing with
under 18s.
The thing with Ollie and Carrick, they were Manchester United number 1 and number 2 for what, 2.5 years?
Are we saying no Darren Fletcher then? Okay, yeah, that's fine. I can live with Carrick or...
Steve's asking, would you go interim with whoever that name is, or would you hit the Eddie Howe, 8 million?
I'd have to wait because like Thomas Tuchel and Carlo Ancelotti.
Also, you could get Howe in the summer, right? You're probably just as likely to get Howe, which is unlikely.
You can get Howe in the summer, still might have to pay the comp. I'd say, but this is the thing, right? It goes back to INEOS I don't trust them, right? Especially with their record over the last 14 months. And this is the thing, if they're doing back channels into Carlo, into Thomas Tuchel now, and they're getting reassurances that they're going to be available, and they're willing to come, just wait till the World Cup finishes, then fine, I'll wait.
So your list is actually the same as Steve, right? Let's forget the timing.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. Carlo and Tuchel are 1 and 2. If you can get them, you're going to get them. You don't have anyone.
I'm going
to
try anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, because let's be honest. Luis Enrique seems like a wild shot. I don't think he would want to join INEOS either. So, what
about you?
I've always said I'm with Steve. I would rather wait till the summer to get a name. I've always felt all the names. This is why people have misconstrued my position as Ruben in. I'm just like, I keep saying it until you give me a better option, an upgrade. And I thought, was it with? Do we have a pod? Was it with Ron and with Scott maybe? Where I was like, we shook on Ollie. I was like, done.
Yeah,
guy.
we did. Yeah,
it was like done deal. Right? Here's the contract.
I think even Ron. Thing is, even the people that kind of wanted Ollie out, I was one of them. After the 2-3 years, I'm pretty sure we all said at the time we fully appreciate he did a really good job for those like 2 full seasons.
I'm telling you, Ed Woodward screwed him with Ronaldo.
Probably, yeah.
100%. He was working on something.
Bad profiling of Sancho, you could say as well, in hindsight,
Yeah, possibly.
There's a lot of mistakes. That's a pod in itself.
My point is like, even the fans that, did want Ollie out by the end, I'm pretty sure most of them would happily take him back, given the shit football for well over, a season. So
that's the thing. I shook on Ollie like weeks ago. I was like, if you can get me my man and bring me Carrick as well, we're done. So if that happens, I'll be really happy. I'm worried that, you said you both of you don't trust INEOS. I don't trust them either because they've made poor decisions on Ten Hag, on Ashworth, on Ruben. I don't think they're going to go down that route.
Yeah. What do you think they will do? What do you think they will do?
They're
Oliver Glasner. I think that's who they're going to go for.
I agree. Season. I think there's a Glasner's a type of name.
Yeah.
And was he part of Red Bull? I think he was. Let me have a look.
He was
obviously that's big.
He was the Frankfurt manager before. I don't know if he was part of the Red Bull network. I mean, that was...
But Christian Bavell, right? Because his influence... Have you heard the story about Bavell? Apparently in August, after the Fulham United game at Craven Cottage, and when good old Marco Silva came up with his quote about how easy it is to play against United and Awobi, he referenced that in a WhatsApp group with like United's senior hierarchy saying like, yeah.
I saw that story. I think I didn't click on the story. I saw the headline, but I also saw that Vavell is going to be quite central in this next manager appointment.
Which is why I think the Ollie Glasner thing keeps popping up, like Jason Burke from Telegraph's reporting it.
Is there a link then between...
I'm just having a look now. You guys carry on.
I mean, obviously, Tuchel's ex-mates with Rangnick, right? Rangnick's the guy who brought him in. Rangnick's obviously the godfather of the Red Bull network. Nagelsmann is another one from that, and he'll be available in the summer. So if there's a Red Bull thing going on, look out for those two names.
Yeah, they've worked together like in the background of the Red Bull football system. Because I think, from memory, having seen an Ollie Glasner interview, he kind of like done his coaching within the Red Bull system.
This podcast is sponsored by Go Play Sports, the brand new mobile app changing the game for grassroots. Whether it's Sunday League or five-a-side, Go Play Sports makes it easy to track attendance, manage teams and cut out the manual admin. No more endless group chats, no more chasing payments, just turn up and play. Go Play Sports. Download now from your app store.
So there's a lot of names out there, but I think one thing United fans are struggling with generally, we've seen this in our community and we know this in the wider fan base, there's almost a part of us which is like, it doesn't matter who the manager is, they're going to fail in this setup under these owners in this football structure. So I asked you on the last pod, will you admit INEOS have been a failure in terms of on the pitch? Now that they've had 2 sackings in their 2 years, will you now admit that INEOS have been a failure on the pitch?
On the pitch, I think it would be undeniable. I've always said, like, I think overall, they're putting the club potentially.
Well, I'll give you the training ground. I'll give you
that's
sorting
where
of
I see the positivity.
I will give you that. You can have that. That's fine. I'm talking on the pitch.
On the pitch, I mean, like, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to say that results have not been good enough. Performances have not been good enough. As I mentioned, they messed up the Ten Hag. He should have been fired in the summer. That was just a poor decision. That created instability the following season. Also, it created instability in the summer window. And then the following season, then you bring in Amorim in the middle of the season. That's never good. Last season was horrific. This season, I think, has been a major improvement. I see positives. Like I said, that in terms of, yes, training ground, but also I do feel the recruitment is better. So I do feel like, yes, we said, this is the thing, saying no to Martinez and Watkins are things I like. I want the sporting director to come in and go, no, these are older players that for the Project 2030 or whatever the project is, they're not going to be around, they're high wages, they're on a decline, we're not signing them, sorry, we're getting Benjamin Sesko and Lemons. I preferred that. I actually like that approach. I like the fact they've gone for the likes of an Aiden Heaven, who we mentioned having a good game.
Sorry, just quickly on Lamons and Sesko. So where do you stand with the way Sesko's playing in terms of like, okay, fine, because this is like the Harry Kane discussion 2 years ago. Like, you were concerned about the wages and the transfer fee. So...
Is it no goals in 3 months, I think, for Sesko?
Yeah, so like,
league?
this is the thing, like, it's one thing to kind of like go cheaper, but then that's why we're 5th, 2 points behind Liverpool or whatever you said, instead of maybe outright 4th and closer to Aston Villa, maybe even closer to Man City. So like...
Got to be done. We've got to target a profile of player in an age bracket that we can grow with the team. Now, whether Sesko's that guy or not, we're going to find out. So far, I think he's done well. Like, if you look at his finishing hasn't been there, but his all-round game is good. Let's see, because that's the point. It's Sesko now. It's not what you're looking at. What does Ollie Watkins look like in 3 years, and what does Sesko look like in 3 years?
Does it matter though? Because
it does matter. That's the whole point. It matters.
No, but it's about now, isn't it? At the moment,
no, it's always about now. But it's also
so you got one striker who's apparently not scored in 3 months, and like Watkins will score more than Sesko.
And we always said that. I even said that. I was like, Watkins would have a better season, and maybe even next season than Sesko will have. But what happened in year 3, 4, and 5 that matters. And then you write off this transfer fee. You pay him more wages and you write off this transfer fee. I 100% back that move for Arsenal, because I'm like, Arsenal need to win now. They should buy Ollie Watkins, because this is the time to win the title for Arsenal. They went and got Gyökeres, your mate. And I think, go and get Watkins, Premier League proven. They should have done it in January. They should have put the money down and got what. For us, it's more, we need to think a bit longer term.
So, yeah, because where we are in the cycle of going back to the top, you think the Šeško younger signing, even if it's a higher transfer
and
fee.
It's okay to buy older players, but they have to be like a free transfer. So, like, for example, it was okay. The Eriksson deal was okay and the Casemiro deal wasn't. They both are at a similar age profile, but look at the fee and the wages. One was a bad transfer. One was okay. It was not a good transfer, but so what? And Eriksson did a job. And if Watkins was available on a free, if Martinez, there was talk about Martinez on a free or something. If that was the case, okay, fine. You do a little short-term patchwork because you're building. Right, but they were talking 40 million for Martinez and 60 million for Watkins. And I'm like, can't spend 100 million on two guys that are not elite level, right? They're not elite level. And then in 2-3 years' time, they're done.
Do you have any sympathy with Ruben then for targeting those two players, which he clearly did?
I mean, sympathy in that I understand that he is going to be judged on short-term results. So he wants the players that will deliver for him next season. But this is where I would prefer, rather than an Ed Woodward style, okay, whatever you want, I'm going to bring him in. We've got some backbone who's saying, no, we've got, you mentioned Christopher Vivell, he's very much onto youth, data, youth recruitment.
Well, he would have been driving Šeško deal, right? Because he's part of Red Bull.
Right. So I actually prefer that we have a structure in place where recruitment has a bigger say than just... So when Ruben says, I'm the manager and not the coach, no, we need someone who's a coach that can work with the hierarchy to turn things around in the longer term. If Ruben, and this is why I said I don't want Tuchel. So if Ruben is of that view of older player, he had to go because it doesn't fit with the recruitment. And that's a mistake at the time of hiring him from Omar Barada, because you need to get this clear. This is the plan. Are you in for this plan? If you're not in for this plan, stay at Lisbon. We need to find someone.
Steve, what about you on that question?
Yeah, I don't have too much sympathy. I think ultimately, forget the system, forget recruitment. He failed in terms of results, like obviously more so last season. I know this season you could say improvement, but within that improvement of this season, guys, we've not beaten 5 of the bottom 6 this season, and the 6th team we're playing on Wednesday. And the manner of some of those performances that we didn't win is not acceptable. And actually, just to pick up on one of the points Ruben made in the press conference, which shows how much Gary Neville is in his head, he actually referenced the fact that certain people need to get over what Gary Neville thinks. And I think that is to do with the fact that Neville heavily criticised us post-Wolves.
Deservedly
From most of the fans' perspective. He said that's the baddest of the bad. So it sounds like people within the club are hearing that and, passing that back to Ruben.
I feel like that's probably in Ruben's head, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Because he's referenced these pundits before. He's mentioned Keane. He's mentioned Neville before. This is the thing. He just seems too emotionally volatile for the job. I've said it on multiple occasions. I thought the job was too big for him, and it's proved to be the case.
But going back to that point about recruitment, I get us what you're trying to create at the club. You're trying to go for that model that which Liverpool have got, which probably City have got, where the club take care of recruitment, although Pep's probably heavily involved at City. But the general modern approach at most well-run football clubs is you do have a football department.
I don't even think Pep is it. If you look at the signings they've made, do you think Pep's actually was involved in any of them?
I mean, I'm sure he has a sign-off given what he's achieved there. Like,
you'd have a sign-off, but do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah,
like,
of course.
If you look at the names, there's clearly a scouting department that's going around that they've
finding these,
got the relevant, and it's not like City have nailed recruitment recently. They've bought a lot of random players, but you need to have a structure in place and not just a manager and his agent network, which is like the Mourinho style, right? Okay, what does and this is the issue where I didn't foresee with Ten Hag. I got massively wrong. Was it seems like Ten Hag and his network was involved in transfers. Now I've realised, actually the good transfers that are happening at Ajax were done by Overmars. He's now come to United and somehow his agency has taken over. We need to get away from that. We need independence in recruitment.
I agree, and I think most progressive football fans would agree with that approach. I just think it's delusional to think that you can go from a Ed Woodward style run club to a Liverpool within 1 year, 2 years. This is probably a 5-year project.
It is.
But
INEOS has said that. It's
no,
a
they
5-year
haven't.
project.
No,
They have. They've said, look, it's a 5-year project and we need to
Isn't it Project
rebuild.
2028?
No, they've targeted to win the league in 2 years' time, which is delusional. Delusional.
It wasn't 5 years from when
No,
they
it's
took over?
2028. Project 2028. 150 years.
I
since
think,
the club.
to be fair, that is delusional. I'm sure
Yeah.
Jim has probably said that's probably too ambitious.
But aim high.
Yeah, but aim high. Whether we can win the league or not, is the approach the right one? I personally think that we have to go younger. When I see these more interesting signings, I know that people who I've never heard of this guy, and it's like, yeah, it's better to try and do a few of those. Also, then add in the Prem proven at the. I actually think, like I said, we overpaid for Mbumo and Cunha, but you know what you're getting. So he got that. He got his know what you're getting, mixed in with a Sesko and a Lamons, who are a little bit more like, okay, a little bit project. He needed a midfielder, so I have sympathy there. The biggest sympathy I have for Ruben, I don't know how much of this is him, is the injury list is unbelievable. Like, the team you could put out who are injured is probably better than the team starting almost, right? Some big names. Bruno Fernandes being out, he's by far our best player. You've lost your two big centre-backs in Maguire and De Ligt. Mbumo and Ahmad and Mazraoui are at AFCON. It's, Mason Mount's injured.
Mason Mount's always injured.
He's always injured, but do you know what I mean? It's like when people say, oh, you've got 8 defenders. Well, who's the person? Kobe Mainoo's out. Who did you want him to start? And yet, we still put up some kind of fight against Leeds, but fundamentally, if you're now saying, I want you to spend 60, 70, 80 million on XYZ player, no, you haven't done enough to deserve that level of backing. If that's a player I want to target anyway, irrespective, fine. We're in a poor financial situation, though. We haven't got European football at the moment. In the summer, we'll have a better understanding of our finances. It's hard for us to do anything in January. So I can understand where the club's coming from.
I've got a different question for you guys because, look, it's fairly obvious from Steve's side, like he wants a Tuchel or a Carlo and like he's happy on a Southgate. On that like next batch of managers down, so kind of like the Eddie Howes, the Iraolas and all that, those types of managers, even across Europe, if you were to pick like a couple or one, if you got one in particular, like have you got any names in your head?
Nagelsmann is one I'd throw into that mix, I guess. But
Well, you got your mate. It's your mate, Barbecue Boy.
Poch.
This is number 5.
Yeah, these managers you can throw
Proven Steve.
But the problem is, guys, like I made this point when Ruben came in, like as I said, I get where you're trying to get to as a club in terms of the way it's run, but you don't do that overnight. So we need a couple of years of stability, of getting good results while you build up that football side of the club, because it's still not right. Jason Wilcox is not competent. And I'll say it now, Omar Barada is a snake. He should not be running Manchester United. He doesn't know anything about the values of the club. He's an ex-City man. He was probably involved in the 115 charges, and I want him out the club. He's a joke of a CEO. He can't communicate. You raise ticket prices.
This is his first gig as a COO.
Yeah.
Don't forget that.
How can you bring someone that hasn't even done this role externally? If you're going to promote someone internally that knows the club. These hires aren't good. And, I know you need to give them time, the likes of Christopher Vivell, but ultimately the two most important positions in the football club, Omar Barada, CEO, Jason Wilcox, Director of Football, are not competent. I've said it for a year now, and it's proven true.
But Steve, there's a bigger problem because, and I've seen it now, right? Because we've had 2 years of INEOS. You could have Michael Edwards in charge of the football side. The problem is Jim Ratcliffe. There's a pattern here, okay? Ten Hag, Dan Ashworth, Ruben Amorim, maybe Omar Barada in the future. They're all hired by him. He talks about gardening leave like he's never understood it, even though he's in the corporate world. And then they all get fired, right?
I was going to ask you, Ash, Ratcliffe's fingerprints are all over the decisions that have been made over the
Even
last
the
2 years.
cost cutting, right? Because I heard today, some of the positive stuff that Omar's done in terms of the finances. That's all driven by Jim. Jim's looking at these numbers, and Omar probably doesn't even have a say, right? You saw the Snake move he did with the ticketing last season in terms of, I think he did an interview or there was a sign to say nothing's going to happen. Then boom, we had those price increases. So this is the issue, like, because I know where you're going to go next, Steve. It's like ownership and the wider problems. But unless Saudi are going to come or another private equity firm, we're stuck with these guys.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've got a 5-point plan that will fix the club, right? Number one, hire Ollie and Carrick until the end of the season to get through, and let's see how we do. Number two, hire Carlo on a 2-year contract for the following 2 seasons to take us into 2028. During those 2 years, force the owners out. And we've got an interesting guest on that point, so we'll talk more about that on future pods. Number 4, rehire Dan Ashworth as director of football. Get Dan Ashworth to basically build that football department of the club. And then number 5, you can have your sexy appointment. You can have your Iriola. You can have your Eddie Howe. You can have the hot prospect in 2 years' time. But this is not going to be an overnight fix. This is going to be in stages. So that's what I would do to fix the club.
So do you think then Thomas Tuchel's the right man, given that his track record is 18 to 24 months at a club?
If anything, if I was trying to be really sly and clever, I would get him in on the basis that he will fall out with the hierarchy. And as a fan base who want the ownership out, that could work in our favour. I want someone who's going to get results over the 2 years and, not take too many risks, because we can't afford to. We finished 15th last season. We need to get back into Europe. So we need to just minimise the risk and go with experience, in my opinion.
If you're going for a Dan Ashworth and you're looking to build structure and culture, surely Southgate's your man, isn't he?
Well, but if you think about my timeline, I'm forcing the owners out over 2 years. So in 2028...
Well, Southgate will get the owners out because the fan base will revolt. Can you
that's
imagine?
my ultimate goal.
Can you imagine? I mean, do you remember in Bilbao? This tells you I've never been Ruben in. I was trying to do the Gareth Southgate campaign. Let me survey the fan base, see what their appetite is, because, let's get my man in post the Euros. It's going to win the Euros.
We convinced Faisal Islam, didn't we?
Just about. I think I did convince Faisal, if you're listening. I mean, we've got video evidence, I think, somewhere.
Have you given some concrete names then? Because I'm still trying to work it out. Because you said on the last pod that Southgate's a bit of like a non-starter. So what is your names?
Let's go our top 3 then.
Yeah, we discussed it with Steve last week, right?
Let's go individual, because you don't like Tuchel. Give us your top 3 for the summer.
Yeah, no, we went through your top 5, wasn't it? And I was like, yeah, Carlo, boom, love that. Tuchel, don't like it. What was number 3? Was it Gareth? Or
Southgate,
someone?
yeah, Southgate.
Southgate, and I was like, yeah, boom, love that. Who was number 4?
Glasner.
Glasner, I don't mind, but interesting thing with Glasner, he seems to have fallen out with the Palace hierarchy as well. So we need to work out on this head coach versus. But as a speaker and as he's done well at Palace,
won a trophy.
Interestingly, one thing that always interests me is the transferability of. I didn't watch his Frankfurt teams as much, but transferability of football style from what I see in the Premier League. We can't play the Crystal Palace way at United. It's not attacking enough. It works at Palace. But he's working
with the players he's got, though.
Yeah, he's obviously said, no, I'm working with the players I've got. He's never played a back 3, he played a back 4 at Frankfurt. So he's like, look, he's flexible on formation. So in theory, Glasner should be an interesting one. And 5, Poch, no, thank you. If you want a wild card in the kind of, big name, don't know what his English is like. I think we mentioned Xavi before.
Yeah.
Was it Ron who was a Xavi fan?
I wanted him. I wanted him when Ruben
is good.
When Ruben came in, because of the stature of having managed a Barcelona.
Yeah. So again, someone who would play decent enough. I don't think he was particularly good at Barcelona, but I also think Barcelona were going through a lot of horrible situations at the time,
which we have as a club. And just one point on Ruben, I slightly feel sorry for him in the fact that the club has gone through a lot of change as an organisation over the last few years. That's one point I will make. And sometimes, United is a Titanic, and he's managing the main floor on it, and it didn't go well. But we just have to acknowledge the change. We talked about the culture, the feeling of the fans. He has had to manage in a very difficult environment.
And to be fair to him, honestly, our punditry is difficult to deal with. Because I listen to these guys as well myself, and I'm like, come on, guys. You know that you've got an influence over this fan base and you're riling them up. Show some a bit more positivity. Scholes, Keane, Neville.
If the football was positive, they would be. you see, even when we win 2-3 games in a row, it looks, if you look at social media, if you look at even the news clippings, it looks like we've won the league. So if the football was decent, then they would be
No, but
like, more
they're always
positive.
waiting, right?
There's a clip circling on social media at the moment of Gary Neville when Ten Hag was in, hammering, the lack of system and actually recommending a back three based on the squad. He says, Shaw and Dalot.
But
and
to me, do you know what that shows, Steve? It just shows how shit Ruben was at coaching a back three, right? So look, you can talk about the players, right?
We're 3 points behind Liverpool.
Yeah, but in terms of coaching a back three, he's not been good enough, right? It's his system. That's the system he wanted. That's the system it looks like INEOS agreed that he can do. He's had 14 months. He's had some of the most shocking stats in the club's history, let alone the Premier League history. That's under Ruben, right? You just said it yourself. Ollie Glasner came in, I think, after Ruben, got more out of a weaker Crystal Palace squad in terms of the overall squad. So to your point, like, if Ollie Glasner was in charge, it's like I wouldn't be offended by it. The one thing, Steve, I would say whoever the next permanent manager is, within reason, unless they're absolutely unbelievable, is prerequisite. They've got to have experience of the Premier League. They have to.
I
So
agree
you wouldn't
with that.
go with the Xavi, right?
I would probably not. No,
You wouldn't hit Nagelsmann.
I don't actually rate Nagelsmann as highly as you guys, or even just generally. So
No, that's fair.
Luis Enrique is an obvious exception to the rule.
Does Southgate qualify given he's managed the England players who play in the Premier League, or do you have to manage in the league itself? And he watches all the Premier League games. He's England manager.
Yeah, no. Ideally, I want them to have coached
For me,
in the Premier League.
It's minimum. It's got to be one out of managed a big club or managed in the Premier League. Ideally both, but at the minimum, it's got to be one. And that's what Ruben did not have, when we rewind the clock.
Do you know one thing about the interim situation? If Michael Carrick was hired as the interim boss, I'm fairly comfortable with that because he's recently been a manager. I know he doesn't tick the Premier League box, but if we're just talking about we're going to get to the end of the season to get the best man for the job, I can deal with that. But I'm just saying, as the next permanent gig manager, it's got to be minimum prerequisite Premier League or top club experience.
What about Maresca then?
I wouldn't personally. I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't touch him after what he did. I mean, to be fair, if it looks like to me, in hindsight, I feel like Ruben was trying to get fired as well.
Do you know what I need, guys? I've talked about my lack of connection to the club that I'm feeling at the moment. I just need the Manchester United DNA and values back. And that's why I'm really open to Ollie. That's why I take Carrick. That's why I'm actually half pleased Fletcher, even if it's a couple of games. I just need like some attacking football, some wingers, some people that represent the club, speak well, honour the traditions, get Kobbie Mainoo back in the team. That's what I need as a fan, is just that reconnection to the club. And that's why I'm actually really supportive of the interim, on top of the fact that the options in the summer are better.
We all want that, but this is the thing, because we've been down this road so many times, right? Like, we were the biggest fans of Giggsy taking.
Well, yeah, I know it's not right long term, but interim.
But even interim, like as said, it could go badly wrong, even with like a Michael Carrick or an Ollie Solskjaer.
But Ollie's done it before.
Yeah, and like you have to bear with it, right? Because you've taken this massive decision to do it in January, the sacking.
So, Steve, I've got a question for you, though. Like, we know Southgate would not go down well with the fan base. Do you think Ollie would?
Yeah, 100%.
He would?
Yeah,
Well,
I think he would. Given the circumstances, yeah. I think, like I said before, I was one of the ones that wanted him out by then because I thought we could do better. But as an interim gig and, honouring the work that he did in those first 2 years, especially now in hindsight, looks even better, the work that he did. I think, again, the connection, the values, a lot of fans are feeling that as well. So I think he'd get a lot of support.
I think what I would, obviously, I was the biggest Ollie fan here. And I think what it would also give as well for him is some closure, I think, because he just left in bad circumstances.
Yeah.
And I would love it for him. Yeah, I think he's.
Question though, do you think INEOS could do something like that?
I don't think they will. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't think they have
It buys them time, though. They know it will be popular. They should know it will be relatively popular with the fan base, and it buys them time. They have more candidates. So I've not heard any talk of it yet, but I'm surprised that they wouldn't even consider it.
I don't think they will, because a lot of this recruitment decision will be based on data and not sentiment.
So, I mean, obviously, if Fletcher wins at Burnley on Wednesday and he wins the FA Cup game against Brighton, which is this weekend, right? You know, there will be a clamour, I think.
Get the contract.
Well, get the interim contract.
Don't think I would be really disappointed in our fan base if there was a clamour off one game.
A couple of games, let's say.
Because the thing that people underestimate with Ollie, he did manage at Mulder.
Yeah,
He
I
had
agree.
a managerial,
Which Fletcher doesn't have.
He also coached. I think he went the Fletcher pathway, right? He coached, I think, our under 18s and the reserves, and then he went and did a smaller gig somewhere else. Won the league once, maybe twice, with Mulder. Had some proper coaching experience before he took the United job. He was the assistant manager under Ollie. They basically talk was that McKenna and Carrick were mainly on the training ground doing the coaching. So Ollie ran it in a Fergie style where, you know, he would oversee things, but McKenna and Carrick would do the sessions. Then Carrick took the Middlesbrough job. Mixed results, but apparently, you know, from what I remember hearing, you know, the football was decent, but, you know, he couldn't get it together fully.
Yeah.
That would make some sense. I still think that I would rather him with Ollie again, just because you have that shield, right? We're talking about the voices and the press, and this is a man that's done the job. He's handled the job. He knows what it's all about. You're telling me he's in Manchester, Steve. Tell him about Rudy's Pizza, arrange the meeting, get the contract. Tell him to put whatever he wants down there.
Not with INEOS in charge.
Our man Fabrizio Romano tweeted 48 minutes ago, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has shown interest in taking Manchester United job as caretaker manager, regardless of contract length.
Of course.
Watch this space.
Yeah, we'll wrap it there. I think, in terms of interim, Ollie and Carrick seem like obvious choices, possibly both, even working with Fletcher.
Would you go back to Old Trafford if it was Ollie and Carrick? Michael Carrick on the sidelines?
If it was Ollie and Carrick, or one of them, I'd be tempted. Yeah, I'd be tempted.
Well, there you go. Jim Ratcliffe, if you're listening, if you want to get Steve back in at Old Trafford, get Michael Carrick on the phone.
We'll wrap it up there, unless there's any more breaking news. Fabrizio.
Do we get gardening leave now, just for a little bit of time?
We can have gardening leave until the interim's announced. So, thanks for tuning in to this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.